digitization in theater is already in progress. And of course, it is important to introduce the staff and the new techniques. So there will be regular events at our facility and with different partners where new techniques and work opportunities of the digital can be experienced. We also created lots of online tutorials in the last 1.5 years during the pandemic. So if you visit our homepage, you will be more informed about the work we do there. And third and last, artistic research for artists and technicians who, during a 5-month fellowships, research an object of their choice. The question can touch on topics of robotics, sensor technology, visual art, so-called artificial intelligence, virtual reality or augmented reality, etc. This is our key project, and by now we had more than 30 fellows with us from very various fields, even from all kinds of performance, like opera, ballet, music, play, direction, video lights, costumes, set design, and so on. The Academy sees itself as a place of innovation, inspiration, discourse, exchange, a place with the courage to try something new and also to fail. This is very important, since in the theater context you have no opportunity to fail. And for reflection, network building, this is very important just during the pandemic, impulse giving and communication, so a place of the art at its best. The long-term goal is to transform the theater workplace into a more agile, smarter, more communicative, more collaborative, more team-based entity. The so-called invisible change in the controls of operation, the visible but technical stage machinery, which is digitally controlled, and the arts should see themselves as a project acting and communicating together. Another task will be to communicate the necessary needs for investments for the respective politicians. Since the beginning of the pandemic, we have also been in high demand for consulting, networking, and lobbying. We have advised institutions all over the world, created tutorials for mainly technical questions from new networks in the German-speaking theater space, like the Theater Network Digital, initiated research proposals, for example, on interactive formats, feedback loops, and advised local politics as well as the government of the Federal Republic of Germany on structural questions regarding digital strategies in the field of performing arts. I have to mention that we are currently doing our work with a staff of around about 8 people, and we did not expect this kind of increase of work as we started. But we all like to give our best, since we are supposed to be the only theater institution that had not been closed during the COVID crisis by now. Well, thank God for this. So we, yeah, really. So we are delighted to welcome different experiments to the Academy for Theatre and Digitality and to accompany them in their work and research. In addition to our research work, we also carry out the artistic work. For example, we received a grant for a project funded by the Creative Europe program. It's called Play On. It's an artistic research project for new storytelling with immersive technologies. It's a larger scale of cooperation project initiated by 9 theaters and also by 9 universities from all over Europe, latter with the experience in the use of digital technologies and with a high digital expertise like the University of York in Great Britain. Dedicated to the theme Concrete Utopias in the Digital Age, Play On is designed to understand, learn, test, and apply immersive technology like immersive gaming structures in order to shift classical storytelling to interactive narrative formats. Since the digital transformation is causing major changes in our societies, contemporary theater must understand the processes of digital change and incorporate the changed communication models of people into its new concepts. So with 4 years, the partners aim to develop new forms of storytelling, building on narrative structures used in the creative game sector, to merge these new forms with a variety of immersive technologies, to use the new format to extend theater towards a public urban space, some like immersive outreach things with relevant stories and the involvement of young adults and co-creators. In 3 phases, the theaters will work on one of the objects in terms of content and technology. The learned gained at each stage will reach the next phase. At the end, 27 productions will be created in total. After 4 years, but now during the COVID crisis, more 5 years, I think, the partners aim to have established new links between the artistic, professional training, industrial sectors. The most visible legacy will be the conceptual toolkit, an open source manual for theaters using the new technologies. So this is the thing we are just working about for, I think, around about 3 years, but it's just only one little frame of it. We just had the premiere with the new opera Persona in Dortmund. We just collaborated with the youth opera of Dortmund, and we will collaborate with the youth drama and the youth ballet in the next 2 years. It's an opera von Thierry Tidro, and it's an interactive live experiment. Through the respective decisions made by the audience, a new theater evening is created for each performance. So you have to decide at certain points of the story, oh my gosh, at certain points of the story how to go on and how not to go on, which character you would like to choose, tell this story, which not. And so every evening the audience creates a new opera experience, and it's every time a different. It's very, very interesting to see how they interact with the theater. So since this is communicated before, the intention to create a work of art together is possibly given. So it's just a little question to my colleague here on the table for the question of the legal rights for it.
Can you repeat it? I was just another space. Sorry.
It's just the co-creation of the public with the opera. Just are they creating together a new form of theater or not?
Well, I think and I feel and I believe, to say it that way, that there is not sufficient participation by the public when they jump in as a public and may somehow have influence on the work, because the work as such has been determined by the creator, by the composer as such, and the role of the public has been determined. And it's not actually not a new question, because this is already existing in theater a lot, so that the public is, or the audience is participating in the work as such, as the director of the work or the creator or the composer has decided before. So they're not, from my point of view, they're not more than a kind of instrument and not even performing.
Mm-hmm. So it's more like gaming technology. It's just controlling a situation with a certain kind of technique.
Yes, well, it's just like, as I said, you're using the public or the audience for adjusting the work in a certain way, and the performance is created by the director or by the author of the work, and the public is only reacting on the let's say on the parameters which have been decided up front by the creator.
Ah. And second question, this is so nice to have you here. I just figured out this would may be interesting. We have a new program. It's just not the artistic technical research. It's artistic scientific research with the Helmholtz-Gemeinschaft in Germany. It's just the largest research association we have. It's, and they have data science networking points for climate change, for medicinal thing, for of course deep learning and all this. And we have one fellow who is just figuring out how emotions from the audience can be transfigured via artificial intelligence into life-changing the composition the orchestra is playing. So this is we have just worked in with the MRTs as the magnetic thing to build up a picture of the heart while performing a poem, just to see how the body reacts on art. This is very, of course, we are always very downscale. We are just working prototypical. We're not doing performances as the Academy, just we're doing little things, just kind of proof for the idea, and then we have to give it to the theater scene. So, of course, this is only the heart. It's only one poem and only one actor, and there's a one-to-one performance, one musician playing parts of the Unanswered Question of Charles Ives, and one person just watching him, and on the reaction we read out by camera and give in the artificial intelligence. There is a life change of the music the musician is supposed to play. So this is more complicated from the creation process, or is it not?
Well, I mean, I don't know whether I get it right, but you're saying that the emotional measurements from the audience are influencing the way of playing the music, or is it changing the composition as such?
It's really changing the composition. but it's not the audience directly, it's the audience just filtered by, of course, mankind programmed artificial intelligence.
Well, I don't see here a critical point here from the copyright perspective either. So there is the measurement of the emotions of the public. If this is emotion, there's nothing original in the legal sense of way. I mean, emotions may be original or something, but from the legal point of view, there's no originality which may interfere somehow in favor of the audience. And in terms of performance, it's the same perspective, because they do not perform anything.
Yeah. Okay.
So the interesting thing would be to know how this emotions really are transposed into the composition. Is this random, or is this somehow organized on certain parameters? Or how does it work?
Yeah, it will be organized at some point of parameters. But it's just the start of the work. We're not finished by now. It will be finished in summer 22. So maybe I can give you more information by then. This most likely is it what we're doing in the academy. I have prepared a little movie, just 1.5 minutes, I think, or 2 minutes. So if we have the time for it, I would give it to you. It was some sort of create a new format for conferencing. We had the Dramaturgical Society in the academy, and we just figured out that we are not able to welcome 500 people live in January 21. So we just virtualized our workrooms and just I just gave all the dramaturgs little avatars, and we had a meeting with 300 people. And there was the opportunity to go in different rooms to see the virtualized works of our fellows. So, of course, we just founded to do things live and to put it on your head and walk through and whatever, or do it hybrid. But this thing, we just digitized the whole thing, and maybe this can give you a little impression of what we're doing. I'm just connecting my. Ta-da! 3, 2, 1. There it is. Fine. So hopefully there's sound.
Ich bin Wessel, ich bin Künstlerin und Szenografin.
Ich mache jetzt eine kurze Einführung in die Inhalte der Arbeit.
In jedem neuen Verbreitungsmedium der Kommunikation, wenn es sich gesellschaftsweit durchsetzt, entstehen neue Möglichkeiten der gesellschaftlichen Vernetzung.
Die Dinge, die wir entwickeln, die sollen frei verfügbar sein und die können dann im besten Falle auch von anderen Theatern genutzt werden, soweit wir das Open Source zur Verfügung stellen können.
Hier sind wir jetzt in Powerei Do, Filling the Vacuum. Es ist eine Arbeit, die aus mehreren Episoden besteht und innerhalb dieser Episoden die Geschichte einer künstlichen Intelligenz erzählt, die sich im Körper einer Drohne befindet.
In meinem Forschungsprojekt Cube verbinde ich diese 3 Säulen, also Theater, Virtual Reality und Hologrammpyramide, und untersuche damit, wie digitales, interaktives und dreidimensionales Theater überhaupt funktionieren kann.
In Daten und datenverarbeitenden Systemen steckt eine Agenda, aber es stehen auch immer Menschen dahinter, die mehr oder weniger bewusst oder unbewusst agieren.
So this is a very, very special format of representing things, and we are just very glad to be allowed to welcome you live and in present by now. So I would like to hand over to you and hope I don't stretch the goal.
Yes, thank you. I need this one.
I think you have an only.
No,
this one?
Okay. Okay, let me see. Yes, so hello everybody. Well, that's up to you, so I don't know.
No, please go ahead, yes.
Okay. Let me shortly introduce well, I'm not an artist. I'm not a director of theaters or something like this. I'm this guy who is making you troubles. I'm a lawyer. And what is happening here? Let me see. Okay. Okay. Well, when I was asked to make this or give this presentation here, I was thinking, well, to talk about law to an unexperienced audience, what can I do? And in particular, talking about artificial intelligence. First of all, I thought, well, to have like a kind of a status, where are we? And where perhaps do we go with artificial intelligence? I think that we, with AI, are in a very previous step. So we have passed through different situations. Why does that not work? Sorry. Just a moment. I don't see the mouse here. Yeah, but this has to be here on my screen. This is technology.
Did you put a mirror screen?
No. What? Yeah, no, I have another screen here.
Yeah, you have to go. No, it's a Macintosh, right? You go to
Yeah.
system you can take 5 minutes maybe. System preferences. If you go to system preferences, you can have the
Let's
mirror.
see that the boss who will do it.
What's wrong?
Well, I need to come back to this point here.
Okay. No. Okay, we quit.
Okay.
And now.
Now, yes.
Here.
Okay, there we are. So I would talk about machine learning. Machine learning is a part of machine learning and transformative technologies, which is, from my point of view, the next big thing to come. Because we are talking about this actual situation here. We're coming from the Industrial Revolution, over the energy revolution, then came the computer revolution, then the internet. Now we are in this kind of AI and machine learning revolution, and what will be next? This will be, from my point of view, it's not about artificial intelligence, it's about transformative technology, which, from my point of view, will need more than artificial intelligence. It will need kind of artificial consciousness. So this will be then the next point to discuss. But let's go forward. What is AI at the end of the day? So AI is machine learning. It's not only the application of certain techniques. It is a composition of different techniques, working with neural networks, genetic algorithms, fuzzy logic, expert knowledge, rule-based systems, and discriminant analysis. This is the so-called, in very short terms, the artificial intelligence. And why do I say this? Because we have to distinguish this with the human intelligence. Because this is human intelligence, and it's very different. In terms of creation, it's very important to have this in mind, that we have this kind of observing, learn, and decide, right? So, but this learn patterns, or this learn process, depends on quite a lot of areas. So we have reason, think, plan, solve problems, create, conceptualize, intuition, abstraction, reflect, self-awareness, and imagine, and just revoke your own decisions, which is very important in the creative process. So what is this all about? It's about human intuition and ingenuity on the one side, and a brute force of computing power on the other side. And this we have to put together in the legal way, and it's not easy. So having said this, we go through different parts of this presentation. I will start with the current legal framework that refers to IP protection for products generated by AI. not assisted by AI and generated by AI, arguments against and in favor of IP protection of AI-generated output, adjusting the current IP law system, are there options and challenges, and the authorship, is there an AI shift, or does AI shift paradigms? And where do we go? And last but not least, the data mining activities, which in my point of view is the most important thing here from the legal perspective. Okay, let's go for the first. Where are we? In the EU, we have the situation of copyright law that the copyright owner is always a natural person, or a group of natural persons, or a legal person which has been designated by the right holders to be owner of the copyright. So the discussion ends here at the end of the day. So because there's no AI work generated by AI which could be protected by IP law under the current conditions. Full stop. But it's a challenge. We have to see what's going on. We have this in other context, which is referring to the neighboring rights, which may be the mere photography and computer programs, and well, basically these 2 points which have to be bear in mind because there are exceptions. We will see that afterwards. The copyright, as the Court of Justice says, reflects, or the intellectual creation is an author's own. If it reflects the author's personality. If you look at this lady on the right, this is a robot. And she's able to paint a self-portrait. She is programmed as such and can do it in different ways. Is it a personal touch already, or is it not? I would say it is not, but it's the first example where we can see where it can go. That we have a robot, a humanoid, which is called AIDA, which has nothing to do with the opera, of course, but it has another context. But this is the first impression we have to have in mind, right? But going back to the roots. When the IP consideration or the authorship or copyright consideration started, we were thinking about this poor guy sitting in his room, having no money, and he needed to be protected. And under this influence, say that way, the copyright acts in Germany and in Spain, similarly, giving him the property of his work, right? The German Copyright Act said only the author's own intellectual creations constitute works within the meaning of this act. And the Spanish Copyright Act saying something similar, a bit more complicated. The intellectual property of a literary, artistic, or scientific work belongs to the author by the mere fact of its creation. Now I give you 2 examples to think about. This one is a creation by Gerhard Richter. It's a very famous one. It's a window in the Cone Cathedral. What is so special about it? This work was created by random. He gave colors to a computer, and the computer organized these colors by random. So is this copyright protected work or not? Because it's merely random. There's no point of originality, of that perhaps his personality is shown in this work. Right? So this is a very important issue here. And now comes the other one. You know this guy? You know the story about this? This is Naruto. Naruto is a simio in I don't know, in Borneo or something like that, but he found a camera which a photographer left there in his camp. And then he took this camera and made a selfie. Okay, so far so good. Then the photographer published this this photo, and institutions or groups like Wikipedia, they published this work, and he tried to to prohibit this publication, and they said, no, you have any kind of copyright because this is not created by you, and only humans can have copyright. Okay. So far, so good. Then he made a book with his photographs, or with his photographs, and reproduced this work in this book. And then he was challenged by Animal Protection Association, and they were asking, well, the animal has the copyright on this, and we want to have the rights on that, or the license fee. This came up in the US. Until the appeal court, because the court in first instance said this, that the photographer, yes, had the right to reproduce it, but then the appeal court was there, and then at the end of the day, unfortunately, we don't have any decision on that because they settled this case. So that's the situation. But there's a lot of discussion about this point. Why do I say this? It's very important to know what is the human nature of the work, or behind the work. Next point, photographs. This is a satellite photograph. You know that a photograph may be a mere photograph and a creative photograph. If there's a creation, so then the protection is different. And this is the kind of neighboring rights I was mentioning before. And so, as I said, photographs recorded by an automated recording process can be protected by the related right, which is referred to in Section 72 of the German Copyright Act and 128 in the Spanish Copyright Act. But always provided, and this is a ruling coming from Germany, that a minimum level of technical merit due to the programming of the recording technique. This is very important to bear in mind. Provided that minimum level of technical merits due to the programming of the recording technique. Next point. In the United Kingdom. The interesting thing is that in the United Kingdom, we have the situation since 1988. At this moment, in 1988, they were thinking about the possibility to protect computer-generated works. Where did they go with that? Nowhere, but they had this consideration at the beginning. So, you know this picture, this painting? It came to an auction. It was sold for 400,000 pounds. This is a work created by a computer on the grounds of a program which was designed by this guy, Eduard de Balmy. So, situation. Works created by AI without sufficient human involvement will be ineligible for copyright protection under the EU acquis. So we have a dividing line between AI-generated works and AI-assisted works. This is very important to bear in mind because the line may be very, very thin if it comes to the point. There's a dispute how substantial the human input needs to be in order to enjoy copyright protection. There are different, this is envisaged or seen by different legislations or jurisdictions in different ways. And there may be a lesser degree of human involvement needed with regard to neighboring rights. This refers to photographs, this refers to databases, this refers to computer programs. Coming to the sui generis rights, which is in the database directive. It's different because there the databases directive is protected by copyright. But of course there is a lesser degree of creativity in there. And what was brought in there is the financial interest. We discussed this before when I said to Agustin, there is a point here that we have to have in mind the economic interest of investment and the return of investment in any kind of development of software or of databases. Same happens with software. Okay. So we have the situation, I said before, there's no protection under current IP law for AI-generated work. Should this change? Well, on the one hand, AI is not susceptible for incentives which are provided by IP rights. IP rights are always thought, bearing in mind the incentive for the author to do something, to receive something on return. IP rights on AI-generated outcome might foster market concentration and might stifle entry of new ventures into market, which means that its creation may end in the hands of somebody, or the rights on the creation may end on the hands of somebody. Might have a negative impact on the human incentives, which is what I said before. It's just more or less the same, but we need, for the creation, needs authors, and authors or creators, and creators has to be incentivized to work and to do and to create. If there's no incentive, there won't be any creation anymore. That's very relevant. I mean, we artists, or they're artists, and say, well, the artist is not interested in money, but at the end of the day, you are interested in money because you need something to live from, right? So, and it's not about subsidies or something like that. I mean, this is the productivity of an artist, which is in danger if there's no incentive. And there's another tool of stimulating investments might be sufficient. For example, the first mover advantage. First mover advantage means that in the hypothetical case that there is an AI-created work, that the first person who moves this is, at the end of the day, the owner of the work. That brings other questions on the table, but it's very relevant and an interesting approach. On the other hand, in favor, we have that IP rights might be necessary to stimulate the investment in AI. What I said, there may be rights or things which are interesting, as we see in your academy. You're working with AI, and there is a lot of development. So we have to stimulate this. New markets for works or serve markets which are currently underserved by human authors. Maybe, perhaps there is a sector which is not covered by human authors, and we need AI. Maybe it comes. And excluding AI-generated work could act as a disincentive for their creation and dissemination, which is in the same. It goes in the same direction. Well, here I have some mention on the patents. I'm not talking about patents here because this brings us into a complete different scenario. As the patents have a different regulation and disclosure obligations and so on and so on. But it's interesting to have this in mind, because if somebody's using AI in a product or creative process and is claiming the copyright protection, he doesn't have to disclose whether he has used AI or not. Right? So in patent, he has to disclose if he wants to patent for something. Okay, what can we do? If we would integrate AI works into the copyright regime, that would mean a complete change of the copyright regime as such. If it is not, then AI works would remain at the public domain, if they're not protected by the data protection database right directive or legislation. Or we have the creation of a robot copyright, kind of a neighboring right or sui generis protection. Then we have to ask ourselves about prerequisites for protection, which means that I have to disclose perhaps the AI which has been applied on this, and then I have to define who is the owner of it. Is there an e-person? Somebody is talking already about an e-person. So is it a legal entity which can be sold? Do we have to create this, or to think about this? And what is the scope of protection and the time of protection? We have to discuss all the time limits. Of course, AI has no hairs, so And on the other hand, we have the situation that the database protection term is about 20 years. It's not about 60 years, as actually. So a lot of things have to be considered. So if we have a distinct IP right, which could be better adjusted to the peculiarity of AI, then we have to think about what I said already about the scope and the duration of protection. But, as I told you before, for third parties, it's impossible to distinguish between human curator and AI. How do I know what is AI created and created by human? So is there obligation to disclose the use of AI? Do I have this obligation, yes or not? And how is it possible to verify this? This is another question which is all on the table. So, are we at the shift of paradigms? Maybe yes. From a practical point of view, from the copyright law, if AI becomes state of the art, this is all hypothetical, I'm telling you, right? We're talking about AI-generated works which actually does not exist. But we are from my point of view, there's only a very, very little step that will happen. This is not about 200 years. This is about decades, perhaps, or not even decades. So there may be a considerable competition for human works, translations, jingles, graphic designs, and even operas, so that the AI may generate operas. From my point of view, it's a very, very small step due to the technology which is available. We will see that afterwards in point 6, which is referring to data mining. If I just get the data out of something and put it together and mix it up, then I may have the program or the possibility to create a new work. I have to speed up a bit. Okay, let me see. Where do we go? Very, very fast. We have two institutions, which is the IP, which is a kind of international institution for protection of intellectual property. And they say we have no protection for AI, we shouldn't have no protection for AI by copyright without some human intervention. Okay, whatever this is. Originally, threshold should determine whether there has been sufficient human intervention, which depends, from their point of view, on the national legislation, so there will nothing be harmonized. The use of AI should not preclude the application of neighboring rights. So that means that we always have to bear in mind that there are neighboring rights like photographs, databases, or other neighboring rights which may be created. The WIPO, the World Intellectual Property Organization, is in conversation about AI and IP since 2019, and they say, should consideration be given to according a legal personality to an AI application where it creates works autonomously? If a human creator is required, who are the different parties involved in creating AI-assisted work, and how should the creator be determined? And will unprotected AI-generated work incentivize the concealment of the involvement of AI? All these questions are discussed, but there is no solution inside. So now we're coming to the most interesting thing from my point of view, which is data mining. You know this picture? This is a picture created by a computer program. They gave in this, featured by a very important bank, by Microsoft, and so on and so on. They gave in, well, I don't know how many works of Rembrandt, and how many information, and all the information available. And they're extracting the data from these works with the so-called neural networks as part of a learning process which a trained model will emerge. Okay. So there we have again. We don't have a copyright issue here because the author is more than dead, and there are no heirs, and there's no copyright on that. In terms of the previous work, right? Which has been temporarily reproduced to create this new work. Once again, my point here, it's a pressing issue because we have on the one hand, we have the right holders who want to protect their work and want to receive money for their work. And on the other hand, we have the economic benefits of the developers having to these data sets to foster innovation and to reduce potential bias in their systems. So this has to be balanced. Another issue here, another interesting thing. These are paintings which have been forged by computers after having analyzed about 80,000 brushes of works and of brush strokes of these works, and they have just reconstructed Matisse, Picasso, Schiele works, right? So the question is the use of works by means of artificial neural networks an act which engages the copyright in the work? Yes, it is, says the prevailing view, because temporary reproductions, which are used to make all this, fall within the scope of reproduction right. Do you know how that works? You know, you have this. You give in all the works in a system to build this new or to create this kind of new work, but then you don't need it anymore and you leave it. It's only a temporary reproduction. You have it only for a second or certain time. So this is certain. We'll see that afterwards. This is different from the persistent reproduction, because it has been given into the system and then it's taken out again. So we have then say, well, okay, if there is a copyright protection of these works, is there an exception? This, for instance, is a artwork developed by this laboratory in the US, giving in about 50,000 or even more for perhaps artworks and data and so on, and they create new artworks which have nothing to do with this Rembrandt we saw before, or other artists which may be, say, recognized in the painting here. So yes, there may be exceptions, says the InfoSoc directive, if it's transcendent, incidental, and independent, and has no independent economic significance. And now there comes the most important thing, as an integral and essential part of a technology process, and whose sole purpose is to enable transmission in a network between third parties by an intermediary, or a lawful use, whatever this is, because this has not been defined. And this is very difficult to assess for lawyers, because we have this situation and say, well, what does it mean? We don't have any technical standards here. We don't have any parameters where we can rely on, and to say to our clients, or that you as clients may rely, say, what do I have to do in order to have the merits of the positive thing of these exceptions? So there's this new DSM directive. You probably heard about that. There's a lot of discussion about this at the moment, not in terms of what I'm going to say here now, but in terms of the famous Article 17 and so on. So we can discuss this another day. The Article 4 gives exceptions for commercial purposes that I may temporarily reproduce the works if it's only where the right to engage in text and data mining has not been expressly reserved by the rights holder in an appropriate manner. Do you know what an appropriate manner is? I don't know that. Well, so then we have to look at the recitals in the directive. And recital 18 says, in the case of content that has been made publicly available online, it should be considered appropriate to reserve those rights by the use of machine-readable means, including metadata and terms and conditions of a website or a service. Wow, You have to read it. I don't understand what they mean by that. So and there's once again there's no technical standard. Sorry, there's no technical standard. Okay, so challenges of data mining activities, and I think for creators, it's very relevant to understand that you have to be very careful with kind of data mining, in particular if you're looking for samplers and samplers or music or sounds and whatever. So you have it here, the lack of coverage for acts of reproduction required to acquire work for subsequent processing. You download something from a website, but you need somehow to acquire this work for its process. The technical and legal uncertainty as to whether any given training process results in the creation of a permanent copy of the work as part of the trained model. So where do we go there? And the legal uncertainty as to the application of the lawful use of the work requirement to any given scenario, which we don't know. We don't have any scenario until now. And the common need to retain a copy of the work for future validation or improvement of the model, because you don't use the work only once and then you leave it. You may need it for another time and another time and another time. So I have a sound recording here, but I think it's not relevant. So that's it. More questions than answers, but I think that perhaps we have some orientation here. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, thank you very much. We have some time now for questions, right? One over there.
Thank you very much for your talk. I think it's very interesting if we compare machine learning to human learning, because when I go to a museum and I look at paintings and then I start painting, maybe I start copying those old paintings and then I develop my style. So when we do this is all a part of the normal process of learning. But when machines do this, it's all regulated by copyright and maybe not permissible. So this is, I think, a bit difficult because the process is basically the same. You put in a lot of data, but you don't get out the data you put in. You get out something completely different. So this is akin to human learning. How do we deal with that if the data is available for me as a human, but not available to the machine who is trying to learn the same way?
Well, okay, first of all, we have to distinguish between assisted learning and independent learning, right? So we have these two things. If you talk about assisted learning, which is at the first step all about machine learning, because it's at the end of the day it's assisted learning because there's somebody giving the parameters how you have to learn it. There's no independent learning, but there is already this deep learning, which is considered as an independent learning because the machine itself learns from its own experience. And so the thing is that okay, if you create this, right? You like I'm coming back to my first point. You are a natural person, and if you create something out of your learning, and you from your learning as such, and you want to have this protected under copyright law, you have no problem. Right? But the problem is now that we have this conceptual configuration that say that only natural persons may have copyright or have copyright protection. So then there is the difference. Your learning process may be identical. It is not, but it may be identical. But at the end of the day, the computer or the AI is not a natural person, as for now. I don't know.
May I add something? Yes. I'm afraid there is a confusion or misunderstanding about deep learning. It's true that there are many, I mean, even in headlines, I've seen that in newspapers or even in technical papers saying that it's a completely different things from developing other software because you don't need to program. So it's everything, it looks like, you know, you switch it on, you switch on that and by miracle, it starts doing things. well, this is completely wrong. There is a lot, hundreds, thousands of hours of work, and a lot of them is trial and error to develop a deep learning thing. You have to decide about the architecture, the number of layers, how the topology of the network. You have to pick up the training set. Humans do that. So it's not true that deep learning is like avoiding programming. You don't get rid of programming. On the contrary, you are involved in a lot of complex programming, as complex or more complex than previous approaches to AI. So in that sense, the human involvement is one thing that you have mentioned, right? That's a key issue, right? Up to what point the human has been involved in the creation of something, right? Nowadays, I can tell you that without exception, even the Bellamy family portraits and all that, with no exception, or the next Rembrandt system, the human involvement is huge, extremely huge. And to me, nowadays, for me, it's clear that the intellectual property rights are by the humans who have been working on designing and everything. So it doesn't make much sense, at least in 2021 or October 2021, to imagine that you can give legal rights or intellectual property rights to an AI system. I don't know in 100 years from now, who knows, right? But nowadays, I'm pretty sure about that. And there is no thing such as real autonomy in AI system. Some people even say that there is no such a thing as real autonomy in humans. So free will has been shown scientifically that free will actually does not exist. But of course, we have to pretend that exists, because otherwise we are in a big mess. Because you could never be accused of having murdered someone, for example, and you know very well that. But in the case of machines, to me, it's extremely clear. There is no way to discuss about that.
Yeah, but the interesting thing will be if someday there will be kind of co-authorship.
Yes, yes.
So someday. So, but then we have always this situation that we have the programming skills, and so on and so on, and from a certain semantically or whatever, the program is in the position to reprogram itself and to create something like a new program, which always needs first the human step, first step. But there may be a new program, and then we have co-authorship, and then the problem starts.
Yeah, genetic algorithms do a little bit of this. Yes. You have you put the initial programming, and then, but actually, basically, they are optimizers. These genetic algorithms, right? So I wouldn't say neither they are self-programming or they are really autonomous programming themselves. But I agree that in let's say, in my opinion, rather distant future, these issues will be there and will be important. So I agree also that it's good to start thinking of them. That's clear to me too. Yeah, that's clear to me.
Luego en castellano, no hay problema, ¿no?
Sí.
Pero en el fondo estamos hablando de asistencia, ¿no? O sea, de una forma u otra, la inteligencia artificial sigue siendo un asistente, como un compositor que tiene programas, que le pone 2 acordes y le hace la configuración del mismo. Si no fuera así, habría que decirle que los derechos no lo tiene ese autor, sino lo tiene el autor que hizo el programa, eso lo puede, quiero decir, sería darle muchas vueltas, ¿no? Pero entiendo que cuando tú compras el programa, el autor eres tú, y porque tienes los derechos de hacer con ese programa lo que quieres. La inteligencia artificial lo que hace, al fin y al cabo, es dotar de una herramienta más sofisticada, ¿no?, al sistema, pero sigue siendo el dueño de todo aquello que produzca con eso, el que está haciendo la programación, el que ha hecho todo el producto, que finalmente puede producir 20.000 Rembrandts, ¿de acuerdo? Pero, y que él es el dueño, porque él es el que ha hecho ese producto, que puede hacer esos Rembrandts, ¿no? Que luego la gente los quiera comprar o no, eso ya depende de cada uno, ¿no? O si va a pagar pues 20 millones por un Rembrandt hecho por una máquina, pues bueno, pues allá él, ¿no? ¿No? O sea, lo que pasa es que hay un problema detrás de todo esto, que es quizá el problema de la banalización del arte, ¿no? Que puede conllevar todo esto, ¿no? O sea, para un público generalista, quiero decir, digamos, yo para qué me voy a gastar, porque un Rembrandt vale 20 millones de euros si resulta que una máquina me los hace y yo tengo un Rembrandt monísimo nuevo por 2 euros en casa, ¿me entiendes? Comprado en Amazon porque lo ha hecho Microsoft, ¿no? Ese es el debate que a mi juicio, como artista, me preocupa más, ¿no? Porque eso conlleva una banalización que ya está pasando de todo arte en la facilidad de las máquinas de poder hacer cualquier cosa, que lo único que hay que saber es comprar la máquina, el software adecuado en cierto modo, ¿no? Sí. Esto se está viendo en la música popular, ¿no? Con el reggaetón hoy día, ¿no? Por ejemplo, es uno de los ejemplos más brutales, ¿no? O bien con cierto rap, etcétera. Yo creo que esta solución de la inteligencia artificial autónoma puede que sea, pero muchísimo largo plazo, ¿no? Y de hecho nunca será autónoma, pero la habremos construido nosotros. En el fondo siempre habrá alguien que la ha construido, ¿no?
Yo creo que, si me permites, yo creo que es un problema que lo que dices tú, o sea, la inteligencia artificial de momento asiste a la creación. Y estamos lejos o no estamos lejos, podemos discutirlo porque no tenemos la bola de cristal, ¿no? Porque lo que pasa es que, desde mi punto de vista, también el efecto de la asistencia de inteligencia artificial en la creación de arte es muy importante, porque, como dices tú, la banalización, que yo llamo ya, digamos, este efecto exocerebral de la creación a través no solamente de la creación en sí, y ya va más con la aplicación de inteligencia artificial que convierte el arte como algo que no lo es, que se puede comparar con un placebo, porque nos da algo que no es, porque no es inherente a la creación, el uso de la inteligencia artificial, y eso puede ir muy lejos. Pero si yo digo, a ver, el concepto de la creación en sí, me llamaba mucho la atención tu intervención antes, que me parecía fantástico, porque tú de alguna manera eres creador, sea compositor, intérprete, porque entiendo yo, porque a través de la composición sobre la marcha de la ópera en situ, estás interpretando, y además eres productor en el sentido de los ingleses, ¿no? El producer, el sound producer, que produce el sonido al final, ¿no? Que aquí hay, digamos, varias intervenciones en una persona que confluyen en la creación de una única obra. Una persona, una única obra, que es una ópera que ya requiere la intervención de mucha gente normalmente, y lo sigue requiriendo. Pero aquí, en este caso, o sea, toda la base está en manos de una persona. Y esto, como se considera esto, para ahora saltar a la perspectiva jurídica, que yo pensaba mucho cuando estaba hablando, hostia, ¿cómo configuro yo todo esto? ¿Vale? ¿Cómo lo implemento yo en un derecho de participación, en los derechos, no sé qué, remuneración, etcétera, etcétera, etcétera? Que es todo en uno. ¿Vale? O sea que son cuestiones que permiten la inteligencia artificial hoy en día. Por un lado, la banalización, por otro lado, la conjunción de varias tareas en una persona, que me parece muy interesante y que nos hace, tenemos que pensarlo mucho a nivel económico o a nivel jurídico, desde mi punto de vista.
In the case of Agustí, it's just everything, basically himself, right? He that does all the aspects, the technological aspects and the compositional aspects, and then I mean, you could easily ask for a patent of what you have done, of your devices and everything. So it would be. You wouldn't have much problems on protecting everything you do, right?
Well, I mean, this is not a new problem. And you imagine all the DJs, the so-called DJs. They work in the same way you do. They have the same instruments. They have all this applications and this platines and so. They're doing the same. And how do they conserve the right? And how do you validate the right at the end of the day if there is a copyright issue? This is mine. No, it's not about open source. It's about this. It is about the result of the use of what you are using. So that is it possible to reproduce to make it again the same way? or is it tomorrow? It's another thing.
Every time is different.
Yeah,
every time is different. But this is the work is because el trabajo está hecho para que realmente la reproducción siempre sea distinta dentro de un ámbito. Sin embargo, pero toda la programación, por ejemplo, yo la planteo en open source, en sistema abierto, porque por lo mismo, digamos, ¿no? O sea, bueno, también porque me gusta esta filosofía, la de, digamos, incorporemos para, digamos, el producto final no es la máquina, sino el resultado musical. Eso es lo que es importante, ¿no? El resultado musical, lo que estás diciendo tú, digamos. Pero ese resultado musical, en cierto modo, está contenido en la partitura, en lo que se determina en esa partitura o en la música que debe hacerse, ¿no?
Hi, thanks for the talk. So I've got a bit of a problem with the co-creation and the independent learning idea as well. Because you mentioned deep learning could be independent learning, but then, Ramón very rightly pointed out that, there is too much of a myth around deep learning. And in fact, as a mathematician myself, there is no difference between linear regression and deep learning other than it being a non-linear function. Yeah?
Sure.
So it's really, really just the same thing. So I don't understand, to start with, what you meant by independent learning in deep learning, and second, with the idea of co-creation. I also have a problem with understanding why a program that is able to create a new program wouldn't just be the product of the human, because to me there is nothing that is really randomness. Yeah, I mean, I come from a very probability background, and if anything, it would be only in quantum physics that you find pure randomness, and we're not even sure about that. But anyway, the current state of things is that randomness doesn't exist. We have pseudo-randomness, yeah? And we programmed this pseudo-randomness to actually give us something that we wanted to look as random as we like, but that's still something that we are programming.
Okay.
Right? And so how can you have co-creation in this?
Well, I have always problems with talking to mathematics and mathematicians. So the thing is, okay, in terms of definitions, so you have your definition, and I have, or we have our definitions. The first point, the independent learning and the deep learning and or machine learning or deep learning as such. Okay, there may be. It is not possible that there's independent learning in terms of mathematics or programming or whatever you want to call it. I don't step in this question because it's purely hypothetical from my point of view. But in the terms of co-creation, coming to from a absolutely legal standpoint, I mean, if you take, we have this adaptation, right? Transformation of a work. We can transform a work into another with the authorization of the original right holder, and then there may be a right on that, which I have on this transformation, like a translator, right? It's not purely co-authorship, but it's a new right which is coming out of the original right? That means that if there is a transformation of this actual program which has been created created by the program as itself or by something else, something else, then there may be another legal entity which may have another right. Co-authorship means then if I have this program, thinking about that, if I have this program which has developed itself, coming out of another one, and I mean, to say it that way, I'm just thinking in terms of coming back and forward from program or from software to artwork. Each artwork has his relation to a former artwork, right? There's always a relation to a former artwork or to history of art or whatever. So it's a kind of development. That doesn't mean that this is kind of there's a right from the former right holders, whenever painted or created a work to have some authorships on that. If this would be the case, then we would kill art and copyright from scratch, right? So the point is here that if we say there must be, or there is theoretically the possibility that a program creates a new program, although the former program has been created by humans, but there may be a development. I don't know. This is stuff for the technicians in this case, and to talk about what possibilities and abilities exist and will exist.
Thanks.
More questions? Dietrich?
Yeah, I have a question to Marcus Lobbes. I wonder, in Germany, the system of the city theaters and the state theaters is like a big organic organism, and what is special about it is the direct relationship to its audience, local audiences. And I wonder now, with your initiative to have a sixth department within the theater, whether and how this department is linked to the local audience. So what is the outcome of the digital theater tools you're developing? What is the local outcome? And do you put it also on the service of everybody in Germany, for example, or the whole world? And what will be the consequence of it for other theaters in different places?
Yes, I just have to. Oh, this is work. First of all, of course, we are part of the City Theater of Dortmund. So, as the sixth department, we are just equal between opera and all the others. Second, they had to change the rules and the laws in the city of Dortmund just to establish our department, since we're not producing anything, and in the public finance theater you have to produce something for the money. So we are really only there for artistical and technical research programs. Of course, not even in the pandemic situation, but in the field that we are the only institution worldwide established out of the institution of theater financed by public money, we have to spread our expectations, ideas, inventions, whatever, as far as possible, so that our fellowship program is an international fellowship program. We have people from all over the world researching at our place, but we have a responsibility for that, what we're doing to the city of Dortmund, of course. And so, therefore, this play-on program I mentioned as an example. We are connected to the Young Opera, which is part of the City Theater, the Young Ballet, and the Young Play department. So we are doing, in the first years of our existence there, co-productions with the other departments. So this is visible for, of course, the city of Dortmund and the audience of Dortmund. We're just giving our expertise in the whole theater, especially in the last 1.5 years. We're just connecting them with all of experts we know from worldwide to local things. And with our things, what I told is this prototypical stuff. We just open the doors. We're just mostly open. Therefore, I told you, just it's not only our website or our techniques or our we just give everything that is produced in our place to the public and to the other theater makers, of course. But we open the doors just for a step inside, since there is a miracle. What are they doing there? Than just nerds programming or whatever. And 2 times in every 5-month fellowships, we open the doors for just explore the things and just have a talk to the artists, the techniques, but even to make it visible for the city of Dortmund. The other thing we just established with Augsburg together, who are sitting there, what I told Theatre Network Digital. It's a conclusion of at least at the moment 40 theaters in the German-speaking theater space. And this is going away from what the German-speaking theater system is supposed to be for the last somehow 100, 150, 200 years, just to be their own department, like a own little kingdom all over the places with their own little kings and queens in it. So we had just invited them to exchange information, to give help to each other, to just open the things you are researching on. And this works very fine, and I think this is our major goal in the scene, just to change the idea how to define this whole theater scene as a thing of doing things together and not separated from each other. Hopefully it works.
Will have tremendous consequences, for sure. This will have that is a change of paradigm, for sure. And well, I guess the discussion you will have in Germany then about that, but that is one of the topics we have to think all about. At the end, we are like a big magma, global magma, sharing thousands and thousands of information resources, and we are losing something of our identity. It's not against the it's not against the let's say of course we have to develop and we have to ensure the share of many things, but for creators, for example, from our credo as Opera Buchaca was we work on a Catalan and Spanish opera, new opera. There are few or almost none of organizations in Spain which have that within their ADN. Now the opera houses, the big ones, are more or less entering in doing new work. But for a long time it was really we are complete outsiders. And but the credo was there is none, so there has to be one, because we have fantastic composers, we have fantastic librettists, and we have to give them work and create within their cultural roots or using their cultural roots. It will be a specific work which is different from anyone else or anywhere else. So and I think, let's say ideally we can share this globally, but we have to protect also this diversity, and that is an important issue with the development.
Well, I just can figure this out. Of course, we are just connected to exchange our experiences. We are just very deep at the heart with our local players. And in the Ruhrgebiet of North Rhine-Westphalia, the Ruhr area, you can see this. There's every 20 kilometers a new opera house, a new theater, and they are all by its own identity. So this is not the thing we want to change. We want to change the art of interacting, just exchanging ideas, just exploring things, just give it. I grew up the last 40 years with, we just have a secret, we're doing our own things, don't tell the neighbor, we are the best of the world. And this is so ridiculous. And we figured out during the crisis At the beginning of the crisis, the theaters just streamed their productions. They had recorded, I don't know, Thursday afternoon, 70:30, and they were all wondering, why is not the whole world watching this Tosca from Regensburg? I don't know. The whole world is not interested at all. If you're going to your ground, if you communicate to your local audience, and if you communicate when you will do what, then the people will watch. They will come to you. They have a different experience of what is their local theater. And then they will tell people, and then, of course, it's the increase of public more than you can imagine in your local theater. But it's not, and this is our major point, this is not a versus discussion. It is not the discussion between are we producing digital, by virtual things, by streaming things, by whatever things, or are we producing at the physical space we meet together? It's both the thing. We have the history of 3,500 years putting techniques into our place, just bringing the fire on the ground, just to have the stories of our identity, to put in a platform just in front of people to give our experiences. They build the houses around, they put mechanics in it, they put electricity in it, and now this is just a new form of communicating with the audience. We just have new artists and new techniques just producing new things that we could define as theater, but it's only an additional thing. And we figured out that the theaters, in a German-speaking place, just overslept this for 20 years. Mm. And this is what we have to do now to see, no, there is, and for every theater it's different. There will be a digital stage. Some theaters, like Augsburg, are going to VR. Some are going to having really a stage with some sort of holographic so-called holographic things, of course. Some others are implementing digital technologies on their live stageness, so like working with robotics or whatever. And we just would like to push this. If not every theater does this by its own, so this is the way just to explore how can we use new technologies in the scene, but not to just equalize every theater. No, this is not our intention at all.
Just one short remark. Very short.
Very short and
very short. Just very short and quick and reduced. Yeah. Right. So I think that sharing is always good if it's well shared. So if you have the federal system, and we know that from Germany, that is a federal system, and sharing does not mean that I'm controlling everything, but I permit the exchange of things and technologies and whatever. This is one thing I wanted to in terms of reflection. And another one, you were mentioning VR, like virtual reality, which is very, very interesting. And I think it's one of the, I didn't mention it in my presentation here, but VR is the next thing to study from the legal point of view, because this is, at the end of the day, who is at the end of the day the right holder of the performance which is reproduced on VR. Is it the VR programmer, or is it the Facebook which is giving you Oculus to look at it, or whatever? So this is another important issue.
Yeah.
Like it's also like the metaverse scenario that Jordi mentioned, right? it would also have these problems. Really. Yeah. Okay. I think we should close now. It's time. We are a little bit late, but it's okay. And let me again, say thank you to both speakers, and thanks to you.
Welcome. Thank you very much. Das ist enorm spannend.